Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Agnes Mach from the Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung EU office in Brussels, and welcome to the first event of our new series, Updating Europe. Our idea was to create a new format together with EuropeTalks, where we can talk about the reforms that are needed for the European Union, and to have a format that is quite interactive. So today it will be mainly about your questions to the speakers that have joined us for today. For our first event, we decided to talk about a more general topic that has been a lot in the news lately these past few months, and that is also quite essential to the European project, as we think. So we decided to talk about solidarity in Europe. And we are quite happy to have two speakers with us today that are very well known for their engagement for the European project. So we have Klára Dobrev, who is Vice President in the European Parliament and Hungarian MEP for the S&D group, and Martin Schulz, who is member of the German Bundestag and a former President of the European Parliament. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, before we go into the discussion with you, I would give the word to my colleagues, Vivian and then also Alexia and Philip, so that they can explain to you, the viewers, how exactly you will be able to interact with us today and pose your questions and commentaries to the speakers.
Yeah, thank you, Agnes. Welcome also from my side. As Agnes said, my name is Vivian Costanzo. I'm one of the founders of EuropeTalks. I'm from Germany and member of the SPD. I'm glad that now Updating Europe with the FAS Brussels office is starting. And I guess that not many of you know EuropeTalks. I know that Martin, you know us actually, but I guess not all of them. So before we start, I just want to explain just in a few words our organization and the idea behind. I was a few years active in the Jusos Hessen Süd, like the young social democrats in Hessen. And for my work, it was always important to talk about Europe not only from the German perspective, also to learn about how Spanish or Italian people are thinking about the European Union. That's why in April 2018, we invited young activists from 12 different European countries to come to Frankfurt and to discuss with us. In the end, we were about 150 activists and decided we have enough from nice events where we are discussing and everybody is going home and that's it. We want more, and we want more European networking also from a local party level. That's why we founded EuropeTalks. Today we are a grassroots movement without any strong structure, with over 60 activists in 13 countries. So anyone who's close to social democracy or socialism can take part. On the one hand, we have to connect local party levels. And on the other hand, that's why we're here today, we offer a platform for events and discussions. So thank you, Klára and Martin, also from EuropeTalks, that you're joining us today. And of course, hello to all the participants today. I saw there are many. And before we're starting with the first questions, I'd like to introduce also our second team, because Agnes and me, we have some help today to make the moderation more easy. We have Philipp Scherer from the FAS office and Alexia Feig from EuropeTalks, who are supporting us, for example, collecting your questions. And now, Philipp, you want to explain some technical stuff first?
Yes, hello also to everyone from me. I'm Philipp, and as mentioned already, the event today is about you guys and your questions. So for this, we've prepared Menti. So if you could go please to menti.com. We will also post this in the chat in a second, and then use the code 736536 to go online. And then the best would be if you could choose your phone for that. Later some activists will join us from EuropeTalks, but until then, please feel free to raise your questions in the Menti chat by clicking on the button, asking a question, and then only for technical issues, please use the Zoom chat. But now I want to hand over to Alexia, my dear colleague, who has prepared something for you guys. Please, Alexia, the stage is yours.
Your microphone, Alexia. Your microphone is off.
Now it's working, right?
It's okay now, yes.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, in order to actively engage with you, we have prepared a few questions with Mentimeter. So for this interactive part, please go to .com and use this code, which is displayed on this sheet here. And then we will start with a short test question. You can submit your answer via Menti, via your phone. And then we will see how this works out. So again, if anybody has technical issues, just feel free to contact us.
Ich sehe aber jetzt hier nur das. Das ist der.
So there you go. Now you can submit your answers. First one is Germany, Netherlands. The answer is, as you already saw, from which country are you watching? And this is just a test question on how this interactive part is working, but it looks good. So many people. We have the Netherlands, Hungary, Albania, some people from Poland, a few people from Poland, a lot of people from Spain. We will wait for a few more seconds until most of you have voted. Great, this looks cool. Yes, as you can see, many different European countries. This is quite a good foundation for an exciting discussion today. And therefore, we will head to the next point. Agnes.
So now that you see how Menti is working, we already wanted to start the debate by having another question for you that goes right into the topic of today. So the next question for you will be, what do we need to stay together as EU? You might have to reload the page, but normally you should be able to see the question now. And you can choose between the following options. Do you think we need more EU social policy, a proper recovery budget, treaty change, more better dialogue, or nothing, everything is good as it is? Okay, so there seems to be a winner, but we will wait a few minutes more. Okay, so you seem to all go into the same direction. So most of you think that we need a social policy on the EU level, or treaty change and more dialogue. So that's already a good starter for the discussion. And Klára, I would pose the same question for you. So what do you need? Do we need to stay together as the EU? So do you think as well we need more social policy, or would you have chosen another of those options?
Well, actually, I would have chosen almost all four first points, but it's not an option. So I would say, before anything else, we need courage. So really, I think we have to have the guts, at least as our founding fathers had at that time, and to talk about absolutely freely. In order to stay together, we need to go through the path what our founding fathers had already given to us. And this is the path towards the United States of Europe, or you can call it on any other name. The main issue is that the ever closer union is not a goal, it's a necessity. It's a historical necessity already. If you would like to say, can say it's an imperative, a political imperative already. And let me say just a few examples. first of all, if you ask the European citizens what are their main concerns, then among the first 3 or maybe now 5, but among the first one is, for example, migration. And well, what happens in Syria, it influences very much the policy, what we have to go on in the next few years. Do we have to await another migration crisis or not? And look what's happening on the peace talks of Syria, where these questions are going to be decided. Who are sitting around the table? Russia, United States, Turkey. And well, with all due respect, especially for the United States, not so much with the current leadership, but anyway, I'm not absolutely sure that all those 3 participants are taking into mind or bearing in the mind the very interest of the European people. And Europe, as one of the biggest economies in the world, one of the strongest power in the world, has no say in a situation which will influence at the end of the day, the everyday life of European people. Or let's talk about economy. I mean, it's so absolutely clear that 70 years ago, we started to go on a path with steel and coal, and then it's going after step. We have now a common market with free movement of goods and services and people. Then it was obvious that it's the path which leads us to a monetary union, now to a banking union. And after crisis and crisis, we just understood that this kind of economic cooperation has to be much stronger, because this is a one-way street. That's no way to turn back. And to tell you the truth, I really have the feeling that the decisions which are taken now in the European Parliament, in the Council, in the Commission, they are going to be in the history books. It's, for example, about the plan to have common European responsibility, common European debt policy. Some of you who might look at the American history, there was a, well, we would call it a Minister of Finance, but he was Secretary of Treasury in the America after the Freedom War in the end of the 18th century. And Hamilton was the one who convinced the states to have a common debt policy. And this is the so-called Hamilton turning point. Because if you have a common debt policy, then it means that you have to harmonize and cooperate in many other aspects as well. Again, step by step, we are going closer and closer to a more federal union, however you call it. And then we can talk about climate change, which is so obvious for all of us that Luxembourg, Portugal, or even Hungary, but even Germany alone cannot do anything about the climate catastrophe. Europe alone cannot do anything either. But Europe not having the power to influence the decision of the other big players like United States, like China, for example, because simply we are not having this kind of authority on a European level, I think it's almost a suicide for European people. And we can go on, because with the COVID crisis, now we are talking about health union. When we talk about much stronger economic monetary policy, that at the end of the day, a common debt policy, at the end of the day, we have to get closer to the social union as well, and to talk about European social policy. That's what we social democrats are fighting for very much. But that's no other way. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, especially nowadays when nationalism are growing now in Europe, and you have many leaders in Europe, unfortunately, including my own prime minister in Hungary, Mr. Orbán, who is always willing to have his own small political power before the common European interest, which is, I'm definitely sure, the interest of the Hungarian people as well. So it's not an easy thing. So that's why I would say we need really to have courage and to push it. You call it as you wish. I call it United States of Europe. That was in the core of my campaign for the European Parliament in a against a very nationalistic politics of Orbán, and people heard it and people answered it. So I think who else, if not Social Democrats, can really represent this kind of courage and guts to go through this policy. So I think that's what we need to stay together, to have an ever closer union and to be brave to fight for it.
And do you think the moment right now is right for such a change? Because, I mean, there were talks of treaty change in the past few months as well. For example, Angela Merkel when she talked about the Council presidency that started today, she also mentioned the possibility of treaty changes, but there are also a few member states who are quite opposed to this. So do you think right now is the...
Well, to tell you the truth, I think exactly now is the right time to push it even harder. And I was on purpose not talking about institutional issues, because institutional issues are somehow consequences of political changes. When we talk about a place on the table in the peace talks in Syria, we talk about a common foreign security policy, or we talk about a common European armed forces, of course. When we talk about much stronger economic cooperation, then we talk about a common social policy and having some decisions from national level brought to the European level. And when we talk about the climate changes, of course, it will at one point need much better and much clearer and much more democratic decision-making process, for example, in the Council. So yes, I do think and I do believe that at the end of the day, step by step, we have to make treaty changes as well. But let's start talking about politics, because that's what people do understand and that's what they feel. They will never get very interested in the Lisbon Treaty. And I don't think that an average European is going to bed in the evening reading the Lisbon Treaty and thinking what can be changed. But if you talk about problems and what are the solutions, then at the end of the day, it's going to be obvious. So when we talk about the Conference of the Future of Europe, which will start just right now, I'm definitely sure that when we try to talk about the contents, when we start to talk about the content of the politics, at the end of the day, we are going to be there at the treaty change.
Yes. So, Martin, what would you say? Do you agree with what Klára said, or do you think right now we need something else to just stick together as the EU? And for the viewers, you can also use Menti to post your questions. So we will soon start with the first Q&A. So just write ahead and post all your questions or commentaries. But yes, now to you first, Martin.
Yeah, I agree entirely with Klára. I think it's not necessary to add something. She summed up the necessary assessments and consideration. We are in a historical moment, for sure. I think that the pandemic developments and the impact of the pandemic to national economy, to the European economy, to the development of our society, the fact that people, for example, from a whole generation, your generation of Vivienne and yours of Agnes, your generation, and I think even Klára is from Hungary, it's a little bit different, but the Western Europeans especially, for the first time, a whole generation which never knew something about borders, recognized for the first time, perceived for the first time, what does it mean, a border between two countries? I'm a man of 64 years. I know very well what, until the middle of my life, I lived just beside the border, German, Belgian, Dutch border. And when I went from my home city to the Netherlands, 7 kilometers, then to Belgium, 100 meters on the other side, and back to Germany, 7 kilometers, I had to pass 3 borders with passports and different money and whatever. Disappeared entirely. We have a common market with free movement of people, free movement of capital, of investments, of goods, services, free movement of especially young people to study in Spanish in woman in Berlin, a German boy in Bologna, a Portuguese in Stockholm, a Hungarian woman in Warsaw, or a Polish in Prague, whatever. And now for the first time in this recent month, suddenly that was impossible. You couldn't meet your friends. You couldn't meet your families. You had to stay at home. This big achievement of democratic fundamental values, one of the most important, free movement, was blocked. And then I had the feeling here in the German Bundestag, it was very interesting that the right-wing extremists of the so-called Alternative für Deutschland, this right-wing, partially neo-fascistic party, they thought that now in Germany and other parts of Europe, people would be enthusiastic, that finally we close our borders and we social distance means our country against other ones. People were enthusiastic when the borders were opened once more, so that all these achievements, all these freedoms were guaranteed once more just 2 weeks ago. Then I got a lot of reaction of people who said, finally, this is over. Finally, we have our free Europe and our freedom in Europe. And therefore, I think the European Union has won with a very difficult beginning, at the beginning of the pandemic development, where some countries were reluctant to cooperate with other countries, where the spirit in my country first was prevailing, but step by step, the member states of the European Union achieved to cooperate better. And now I think there is a common feeling we are all affected by the same problems. Wherever you live in Europe, we have the same problems. Social distancing, on one hand, you can't meet with your family, older people are at risk, children can't go to school, and the economy is suffering. And we can solve all these problems only by coherence internally and cooperation across borders. And therefore, I think Klára was completely right when she spoke about the historical dimension. I share your view, Klára. In perhaps 3-4 decades, people looking retrospective will say this was a moment changing completely Europe and the societies in Europe. And in addition to these experiences I just described, we are living in a changing world. China, with an expansion on economic, political, and military strategy. The United States, with a man as president who is, let me be honest to him, a case for a doctor. But it is, we are all afraid about. He is not a case for a medical treatment. He is the president of the United States and bringing the whole world in a real risk. Not only his own country, the whole world. So that we have a hope, or I have the hope, that he will be not re-elected in November and replaced by a more reasonable man. But taking into account the development of the United States of America, losing the role as the leading democracy in Western world, looking to China, looking to the guided democracy as we see today in Russia, the eternal presidency of Vladimir Putin. We should really, as Europeans, take into account that there is only one place in the world where 27 countries, on the basis of their constitutions, and I even don't accept Hungary, because at the end I have the hope that in Hungary one day that man will be replaced by a responsible prime minister, you perhaps, Klára, or whoever. I wish you would win the next election and become prime minister of Hungary. Let's be honest, this is possible, it's feasible, and then completely the situation will change. Therefore, we can't take Poland and Hungary out of these 27 democracies. In both countries are existing strong opposition, as we saw just last Sunday in Poland. That we can't speak about Poland is Kaczynski. No, the Polish people is not Kaczynski. There is still a big chance to change the majority in the country, and then Poland will get back to those countries who are completely pro-European, as the country was at the beginning. Remember Donald Tusk or our party in Poland, Leszek Miller, who is now a colleague of yours, Klára, in the room in the European Parliament, who led Poland to the European Union. This was enthusiastic pro-European people. So no place on the world, on our planet, where 27 democracies guaranteeing dignity, individual human rights, and protection on the social base to the citizens as a goal, as the priority of state acting, is to protect citizens. Okay, conservative governments or liberal governments are doing this less than social democratic governments or left-wing governments. But in a nutshell, the goal of 27 democracies is to guarantee individual social and ecological rights to individuals, to citizens. And there is no other place of the world where the goal of state acting of governments is, with ups and downs, this exactly to give guarantees to the citizens, to give rights to the citizens. There's only one place in the world, it's Europe. And this model, that's the historical dimension. The competition with China, the United States and Russia is about our system, about the organization of a country of the state, that the state is existing to protect the citizens and to support and help the citizens. And therefore, I think in this worldwide competition in which we are living, economically and politically, the Europeans will win only and exclusively if they understand what Jean-Claude Juncker used to say regularly. The European Union is a union of a majority of small states, small countries, and some countries who have not yet understood that they are small countries. My country, for example, is belonging to this group, and therefore I think in that spirit, a common, closed, ever closer union, as you said, European Union, can survive with our democratic model, or we will become, if we maintain to be divided, an element of strategies decided in Beijing, in Washington, or in Moscow.
Yes, so that's quite a positive view that we already have achieved a lot and just have to realize what we have with this project in order to stay united and have one voice. Would you say that the Next Generation Fund, so the recovery package, was a good step into this direction? Because there was this talk of showing solidarity with the countries that are in crisis now and to share the burdens and give them grants instead of just loans. But there are also many people who say that this is not enough and this is just a small step. So what is your opinion on that?
Was this a question to me? Or?
Yes, to you, Martin.
I don't want to repeat what I said in answering to your question. I add one element. The world in which we are living is a world with increasing risks. And my generation, if you speak about the younger generation, about your generation, I want to answer in comparing your future life with my life during the last 45 years. I'm a post-war Western German, feministic, white man, elder than 60 years. So this is the exact description of mine. Living a whole life in peace, in dignity, under democratic circumstances, with a kind of wealth, access to information, access to education, and I repeat once more, with a guarantee of peace and individual rights, no single generation in my country before ever had the chance to enjoy. This is the balance of my life. Peace, wealth, security, democracy, freedom. Next generation, my children and their children, Could I give a guarantee that in the next 40 years, you will live in peace, dignity, wealth, access to information, access to education, in an environment worth to live in? I'm not sure. If we follow a strategy of Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro, for sure not. If the rules of Xi Jinping will prevail in the world, for sure not. If we will live in a kind of guided democracy style Vladimir Putin, by the way, Erdogan or Orban thinking similar, for sure not. Therefore, I repeat once more, next generation, the answer to what are you foreseeing for the next generation must always be, this is my opinion, that acting responsible politicians, men and women with political, executive and legislative power, have to discuss, to assess and to decide always and exclusively on the basis of one question. What does what I decide today mean for the next generation? Not for me, for the next generation. And my feeling is that one of the biggest risks for the next generation is that some of the most successful parties in Europe are parties who are exactly thinking only what is using me and my party today. Which kind of strategy is useful for me to solve a short-term problem today? And what is shocking me most is that one of the most successful people acting and thinking in this short-term strategy is a very young man, Sebastian Kurz in Vienna. This is a style of policy. I don't care about the future, I care about the opinion poll of today. And therefore, I hope that we in European politics, nationally and on the European level, continue as social democrats especially to discuss, to act and to decide on the basis of sustainability thinking. What is on long-term sustainable? And what is not using me on a short term, what is on the long run sustainable for the next generation.
Okay, perfect. So I see Menti is now working again. So Vivian, maybe I would give back to you so that you can show us what questions we got so far.
Yeah, hello again from my side. Thank you, Klára and Martin, for your first statements. And yeah, I'm sorry for the Menti problems with the code, but now it's working. And yeah, Alexia, did you already receive some interesting questions or comments you would like to share with us or ask to Klára and Martin?
Yes, definitely. We've got quite a lot of questions. We have a few questions regarding what has just been said concerning the challenges of the pandemic. And I think a good question would be to start with this huge topic of Corona and COVID-19. So the first question is, the current pandemic crisis has made it clear that a split between Southern Europe and Northern Europe actually exists or has become even deeper. What do you think? How can we get back together and find a common understanding?
So, Martin, do you want to answer this question first?
What's the question to me or to both of us?
Do you want to? You can start if you want to.
You can start.
Hmm?
So yeah, just maybe in 1 minute, and then we can switch to Klára.
Yeah, I know my answers are too long. I try to be as short as possible.
This was a polite advice.
There is a split. There was a split between North and South. Not for the first time, by the way. We saw it in the financial crisis as well. So we saw it in the migration crisis, North, South, and also West, East. What should we do? I think that the German-French proposal for the recovery fund is a good step forward. And I hope that social democratic governments in Denmark and Sweden and liberal and conservative governments in Vienna and The Hague will at the end understand that there is that they have to make a choice. The choice I exactly described in my last observation. It is a choice between what is useful on a long term and what means it for me if I answer to short-term opinion polls, which are not in favor of common solidarity in Europe. To answer to the skepticism expressed in these polls and to be reluctant to the recovery fund is one option. Leading Europe to split and to a paralyzed situation. And let's be honest, if Italy will suffer economically, all the other countries, especially Germany, and the economies linked to Germany, like Austria or the Netherlands, will suffer considerably. Therefore, my advice is, let's come to the German-French proposal, and then we reconcile Northern Europeans and Southern Europeans.
So,
Yes,
was it short enough?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll try to be short as well. So as Martin said, I mean, it's absolutely, for me, it's natural that there are conflicts. The unique issue of the European Union is that we are 6 countries with different backgrounds, history, language, and sometimes interests as well. And the beauty of the Union in the last 70 years that we always managed to bring it to a compromise. Whether this compromise was 100%, of course not, because that's not the natural way of doing compromises. I would like to make it quicker. Of course, I would like to make it quicker. But still, the path we are going, it's a good way. So what I think is, and just don't want to repeat what Martin said, that as everyone understands that in all of our interests is to keep Europe together, East, West, South, and North as well, that everyone is going to make the compromise. We have in front of us a lot of challenges. Let's, if not about the recovery plan, if we talk about East and West, I mean, that's a huge trouble for us Eastern Europeans, that the best people are fleeing to the West to work there, leaving us without doctors, nurses, or even electricians or IT experts. On the other hand, in the West, making a big conflict and tension with the salaries. But free movement of people is one of our best and wonderful achievements. So we have to make somehow a compromise and to find other policies to clear it up and to make a balance between South and North, East and West as well. And the same is going to be with the Stability and Growth Pact as well, which proved to be insufficient in cases like we are dealing right now. So I'm definitely sure that at the end of the day, the common reason will be for all of us. Whether I will be satisfied with it or not, I'm definitely sure not, because I always want a little bit more, a little bit better. But I will say, and that's what I'm saying always, that I'm young enough that I have the guts and the feeling that I would like to change the world. But I'm unfortunately old enough to know that you have to do it step by step. And so the most important issue in this kind of recovery plan as well, we should go in a good direction. The step is not going to be sufficient for everyone, but still it should be in the right direction.
Thank you, Klára. Normally I wanted just to comment what you said, but it was so perfect and it was a good end. That's why I don't want to comment it, and just to give back to Alexia, because I guess we have many questions right now, and you decided to ask one to Klára, right?
We do, yes. There's one question concerning the principles of democracy and also women's rights, ethnic minorities, and how does the corona crisis affect those achievements, and what do you think should be steps by the EU to maintain those democratic standards in especially the Eastern European countries?
Well, we have some global threats. We should talk about it, like artificial intelligence and all these kind of tools which are used in the COVID crisis. This is, I think, a great opportunity and a great threat as well for all of us. But to answer the question, when there is an economic crisis, and there is a huge economic crisis, then the vulnerable groups are always the ones who are going to suffer the most. And that's what we see here as well. those people who doesn't have the job to do it from home. I mean, for us, members of the European Parliament, it was so easy to have the iPad and to work from home. But how many people can do it, especially those ones who are working with their both hands? And then during the crisis, we could really see that maybe you can survive without a member of the parliament, but you cannot survive without a garbage man, for example, or the one who is driving the trucks and delivering the foods and products to the shops. So definitely sure that, that this COVID crisis should switch the European policy towards a much more social Europe, much more focusing on vulnerable people. We Social Democrats are talking about it since 30 years, that the difference, the inequalities in wages, in incomes, in wealth in the world is rising, and in Europe it's rising. And the globalization is a wonderful thing, and I think we have a lot of to thank to it, and we cannot stop it, and we should not stop it. But there are some challenges that we have to face, and inequalities are the ones, and this is the time to face it. That the Europe which is dealing and working for only for the wealthiest, that's the Europe which is not going to survive. The Europe and the economy which works for all, I think that's Ursula von der Leyen's always telling. Well, then let's do it. Let's do it that it should work for all. Let's have European minimum wages. Let's have minimum incomes. Let's have strong trade unions. Let's have taxation for multinational companies and global companies. Let's really do it. And really, I mean, you have heard it so many times in the past 3 months that every crisis is an opportunity. But I really believe that the crisis is an opportunity, and it's up to us, as Martin said, those men and women who are taking decisions right now, whether they are Dutch or Italian or Portuguese or German, it's up to us to take the right decision in a time of crisis.
Thank you, Klára. During the COVID crisis, we as EuropeTalks activists, we had many Zoom calls and discussed exactly these topics in this way. And that's why I guess this answer was really important for our activists right now. And they're writing me all the time during the call that, yeah, she's right, she's right. So I guess we just did a point. Martin, now we have a cut with the question because Alexia decided to ask you a question in a completely different direction. Please, Alexia.
Well, it's not a completely different direction, but it basically opens the horizon even a bit more. It's concerning the relationship to the USA. So the question is, how do you see in a European way the relationship between the USA and Europe? Should Europe oversee the provocation of the president and offer more help?
One minute, 2 minutes.
We have to respect the sovereign vote of the United States citizens. On the basis of the electoral system, he was elected. It started already that he was elected on the basis of no majority of votes. Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump. More European citizens voted for Clinton than for Trump, but the electoral system in the federal state led to the fact that he had a majority of states, and the result was that we got Donald Trump. For everybody in Europe, it is extremely difficult to manage the relationship with the government, acting from the early morning to the late night by lying, falsifying, threatening other people who are not of the same opinion, undermining the constitutional system of the United States. It's extremely difficult to manage it, but nevertheless we are obliged to do it because he is the elected president of the United States. So therefore, the answer is very difficult. Europe must live with him, but Europe should not follow him. This is the difference. I think that his defense and military policy is wrong. I think that his social policy is a catastrophe within his own country. The management of the crisis is a disaster, costing life of citizens in his country. And honestly, I hope that Joe Biden will win the next election.
Yeah, I think everybody here is hoping that. And I have a flatmate from Brazil, from Manaus, from the Amazon. She was working for an NGO there to protect the Amazon, and we had nearly the same discussion about it and about democracy and what we can do. And this is such a difficult topic, and also about Trump. And I guess that many people all over the world are hoping Biden will win the next elections, I guess in November, right? Yeah. But before Alexia is asking the next question, we have a surprise for our speakers. Maybe somebody of you saw on social media, Robert Peter, our EuropeTalks activist, he visited a hardware store in Berlin for preparing something for today. Agnes, what we have come up with?
Yes, so we prepared some presents for both Martin and Klára that they received these past few days. And so you don't know yet what is in it, but I would ask you now to just open them and show the items that are in this package to us. And both are items that fit our topic for today, and just wanted to give you a choice. So you both have 2 items in there, and
envelope in the envelope.
Yes, right.
Suspense in my office the whole day. Everybody wanted to know what is in. So now.
Okay, I have a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. No, go ahead.
Go.
But wait a minute. I have not yet opened.
I will fly to Barcelona. Good. Oh no,
Yes,
no.
Exactly. So that's a flight ticket from...
It's already passed.
Yes.
We couldn't fly because of the COVID. Okay. Well, for the 1 second, I was very happy. One of my favorite cities.
Yes, it's actually from the week that all the borders were closed down.
Closed, the 13th of March. Okay, Martin, what do you have?
I don't know. It seems to me that they want to put me in jail. I don't know. Leave me, free me. So, I don't know. This is a, yeah. What is it?
There are a few things that you can associate.
It is a fence, a piece of a fence. Huh? Yeah. It's a gift for Viktor Orban. And yeah, I have a flight from Barcelona to Basel-Mulhouse.
Yes, also from the same week. And yes, so we had prepared these items because we thought they...
Moment, it is not for me. Excuse me, Agnes, it is not for me. It is a ticket for Miss Vivian Constanzo. I thought it is for me.
This is the thing that the FAS office prepared the package for Klára, and they were more, I would say, they were organized better than us, and EuropeTalks prepared the package for Martin, and we forgot to change the name. Actually, these 2 board cards were my board cards because of my holiday. So I was in vacation in Barcelona and had to take the last flight back to Basel before the borders were closing. That's why you're getting these 2 board cards. But sorry, Agnes, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to explain why it's my name on the board card.
With EasyJet. Yeah.
Wait.
And they don't fly anymore for the moment.
Yeah, and we already talked a little about borders, so maybe you could just take the other item that you each got and tell us what associations you have with it, and what do you think, what has it to do with solidarity in Europe? And maybe Klára, I would start with you.
With me?
Yes.
Well, okay, then let's say that this boarding pass is a symbol of what we do have in Europe and what we do have to protect. And this is the free movement of people, of goods, of services, this kind of common European life, what we have from Warsaw to Portugal as well, and what we have to strengthen. And And also I saw that there are some people from Albania watching us. When I talk about United States of Europe and ever closer union, then I definitely believe that Europe should not end at the border of Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, but Europe should enlarge as well. So I think that this is what we almost lost in the last 3 months, and this should be a symbol of what we should really protect, this kind of closeness and this kind of common feeling that we Europeans can live with us together. And well, this mask, I think it should be maybe a symbol of what do we have to do. So the COVID crisis showed us how weak Europe can be if we do not have the institution, the authority, the legislation, the possibility to act as quick and efficient. We were talking about the treaty change. So let this must be the example what we need. We were talking about health union. We were talking about Europe, which can act very quickly of mobilizing equipment, goods, doctors, nurses. We were talking about the security and defense policy, about the common army, about the common climate policy. So everything what we still do not have, but we should have in order to be in the 21st century and to be one of the strongest one in the world. So maybe these 2 thoughts about the things, that's okay?
Yes. What we also choose the mask for is because it represents the people that work in jobs that are of systemic relevance for us and that are not that get not the recognition that they deserve. And we thought it very fitting for you because you are also in the Committee for Employment and responsible for the update of the employment guidelines. So what exactly are you able to do on the EU level to improve the conditions for those workers?
What we are talking so much about, what does a country, how a country can be more effective, efficient, innovative, competitive. And I'm really sometimes so angry when I'm looking at or hearing to the conservatives or liberals who are telling that, come on, we should not invest in this kind of state issues because it just takes away the money from the business. But that's not true. I mean, a country, Europe, can be competitive if we have educated, healthy, and people with dignity on the workplaces. And who is providing education? Who is providing health? Who is taking away the garbage? Who are the ones who can help us in our everyday life? Social investments, and then let's talk about in European terms, social investments, what we are talking about, are investments in the future. It's not spending money, it's investing money. So when we Europeans, especially social democrats, we say that we should talk about social Europe, that we should have much more investments in social capital, that we should have investments in different institutions like health, like education, like social institutions, like elderly homes, like nursery homes, when we talk about feminism and women in the working places, then we have to accept, and decision makers have to accept, that we are not going to be a competitive union within a few years if we are not investing. And I think this COVID crisis showed it exactly, that those people who we are talking about in the Employment Committee, and especially we Social Democrats, those are essential for the whole society.
Thank you. So Martin, yes, you got the fence, and just as you, we thought a lot about Hungary when choosing this item for different reasons. So we thought both of a border fence because of the position of the Visegrad countries when it comes to taking in migrants into their country, because that's where the word solidarity was used a lot from both sides, from the EU saying that they have to do their part, but also from the Visegrad countries that are saying there are different ways to show solidarity, like by financing other countries to take in migrants, for example. We also thought about a jail, just as you, because of what has been happening these past few months, where you saw journalists being jailed in because they were doing press coverage about Corona or the democratic standards that were being threatened in the country. So yes, so those were the things that we thought about when giving you this item. And you talked a lot about Hungary already. So what do you think is the best way to deal with governments such as Orban's and to find a solution?
There is nothing, no necessity for me to add something about the gift, about the fence, because you in your question or in the preliminary remarks to your question described everything, what I should say, so not necessary for me to repeat it, thank you very much. Which is concerning governments, authoritarian governments like the Hungarian one. There are two necessity steps. First of all is to support the opposition in these countries. I repeat what I said. Agnes is a leading, Klára is a leading person in an opposition party, still with chances one day to beat him in a free and fair election. Therefore, we should not underestimate how important it is that the opposition in such countries feel that they are backed and supported by people in other countries. I mention this, first of all, because one of the strategies of governments like the Hungarian or the Polish is they joined the European Union on the basis of common principles ratified in the Polish and Hungarian parliament. The Lisbon Treaty is ratified by the parliament of these countries. So all the contents and the duties described in the treaties are duties of these countries. So far, so good. As long as the European Union is providing this government with what they wish, money, support, international relations, access to other markets via the free trade agreements, etc., the European Union is okay. The moment the European Union is asking them to stick to what we agreed in common, so to stick not only to the privileges, but also to the duties, they immediately react saying that the appeal to stick to common values is an interference in domestic responsibilities. This is a very efficient system. Money, this is my right to stick to common agreed rules, is interfering in my sovereignty. The appeal to stick to these rules. This is functioning. Let's be honest. A lot of people in these countries feel, these Brussels people, what they are dealing with our domestic items. They have nothing to do with it. As long as there is not a suspension mechanism in the 7 years budget, as long as we are depending from Article 7 procedures, ending at the end always in the Council, with always one country putting a veto against measures against the country, we will never succeed. If we succeed that in the 7 years budget, in the multi-annual financial framework, we include a suspension mechanism giving the right to the Commission and to the European Parliament to stop the money when the rules are not respected, then we act with qualified majority in the Council and with the majority in the European Parliament. And this is, in my eyes, an enormous progress to apply what the European Union is telling to citizens. Those who are not respecting the rules are at the end obliged to respect and to do, and if they will not follow, they can't get the money. I repeat, as long as it is in the hands of the governments, of the national governments in the European Council, we will never succeed. And therefore, I hope that the German presidency will succeed in including such a suspension mechanism. And this is the only language people like Viktor Orban understand. And it is not necessary and even not acceptable that with European money in the deepest crisis, Hungary, the government of Hungary, one of the governments refusing completely solidarity in the migration question, got, as I know, about 5 billion euros. 5 billion euros. And a country like Italy really sharing with Germany and some other countries most of the burdens of the migration problems in the last years, has to fight and to struggle really with the northern European countries to be saved and solved and supported by solving the domestic problems. Therefore, I think the only language, the only message people like Orban understand is, if you will not stick to our common rules, you can't expect that we pay.
Yes.
That was long. It was very long, I know.
I think I should
That's
add,
an important topic. So
I think I should add to this as well something. I couldn't agree more with Martin. I mean, Europe and the European countries have to understand that the illiberal democracy, or however you call it, of Orban, was built from European taxpayers' money. In the last 10 years, the father, the brother, the son-in-law, the neighbor, and whoever oligarch around Orban became the richest people, not in Hungary. His neighbor is now richer than the Queen of Great Britain, and he was nobody 10 years ago. And you have to face this problem. And I do understand this common European project was not based on this kind of attitude that Orban is producing, but we have to have an answer to that. So what we are really, and looking forward for the German presidency, because we really think that rule of law mechanism should be activated. And the right of government, and now I would like to formulate it in a very precise way. I think the right of the government to distribute European money, that has to be taken away from Orban. But on the same way, we would propose, at least for part of the money, just to show to Hungarians that it's not about Hungary, it's about the corrupt government, that at least part of the money should be available for local governments, for civil organizations which are oppressed now by the government, for media, for institutions, for academia. And we have, on European level, we have the instruments for that. You need just simply the courage to change a little bit and step out of the box. So at least part of the money should be available for Hungary, but the right of the Hungarian government to distribute the money should be taken away. And here, if I might say, because I know that a lot of Germans are listening to us, I have to have a criticism towards the German Christian Democrats and to Angela Merkel, that in the last 10 years, they simply closed their eyes. And I can imagine that they thought that Orban is going to cool down, we should keep him inside, and then we can change his attitude. But it's not true. Orban is getting every year worse and worse. A dictator cannot turn around and become a Democrat. That's simply not the way. And that's what we are seeing day by day. The elections in Hungary are they are not free and not fair at all. Still, we are trying to do our best to defeat him in 22, and I think we really will have the chance for that. But we need the European community, social democrats, Christian democrats, Greens, liberals, together to show that the way how he is dealing, it's not the European way. Hungarians are still the most pro-European country in Europe, if you see the polls. For 1,000 years of history, we always wanted to belong to the West. And to show that you have to choose between Orban and Europe, because Orban is not the politics that is accepted in Europe. That needs to be absolutely clear formulated. And it needs to be formulated by the German politics as well, and by Angela Merkel as well, because I think she was the one who kept Orban so long in the European People's Party, in the EPP, and with these circumstances.
Yes. So I have to break up this topic right now because we also have some activists from EuropeTalks who have some questions for you. So I would give back to Vivian, and she will present you the next question.
But this was so interesting right now because I want to know from Martin if he's agreeing with this criticizing from Klára. Can you just answer in just a short 1 minute about it? And then we can ask the EuropeTalks activists, but I guess it's important to ask you about it.
Short, I agree entirely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, as I said in the beginning, EuropeTalks is just a grassroots movement with many activists, and we decided also to give a few of them the chance to ask questions, because now you're meeting Alexia and me, but we are much more than these two German activists. And Philip, you know, we'll give one of us the opportunity.
Thank you already for this.
I hope it's working.
Yes, thank you already for this great insight. It has triggered so many great questions in the audience, although we had some technical issues. But now I think I can promote Laura Sparavigna, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, to join us on stage, if it works in a moment. Then you can pose your question live.
Hello.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Hi. So sorry for, I'm still in my house as I've been each single day in the last months, so I'm not yet allowed to go to my office. So welcome to my house and the most private way of sharing questions. So thank you for this opportunity. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to have a normal light, but I'm just gonna look like this. So thank you for the discussion you were having, especially in the last part. I think you were actually going to the focus of this situation, and I really appreciate even the sketchy way sometimes of how you have been able to discuss, because the situation is becoming really tough in this side of the European Union. So let me just introduce myself so you can understand why I'm asking you what I'm going to ask you. So I am Laura, as Philip said, and the pronunciation was perfect. So I come from Italy, and I am a city councillor in Florence. I am the head of the Education and Job Committee in the City Council of Florence. So basically, I totally agree about what you said when you were describing, you both were describing it, European Union, and as the only land still exists in the whole world, full of freedom and the basic and fundamental rights. But most than everything is the only land in the world where you actually are still having a welfare state. I mean, we do have many differences, but we do have a welfare state. And as Klára said before, we, especially in the past months, due to the COVID pandemic, we got the chance to tell people that taxes, using public money to do something for others, is not spending, but is investing. So basically the welfare system, which is something that the liberal democracy are trying to cut down or to convert into a private system, welfare system is the key solution to the future. So I am a city councillor, so I don't have the richness of the time. I cannot take too much time to give answer to my people because I have to solve stuff and I have to be concrete, pragmatic, precise, and I need to actually give answer because they know me and they know where I do live. So I think that on the city level, you can feel the European identity. You can feel that the European Union it's working, and you see kind of answer to the digital revolution, to the climate change, to demographic crisis, and you feel the power of being united against, not against because those are bad stuff, but against in a good cooperative way. But I feel like on the national level, on the European level, is exactly the opposite. So the first question is how we can not give more voice to the city level, but how can we stimulate the national and European level to be able to cooperate and to be more brave and more fast as we have to be on a city level. The second question, sorry if I take too long, but it's a really unique chance. Thank you. The second was welfare state. So due to the pandemic COVID crisis, obviously we have seen all the failure of the system under many aspects, as you have already discussed about. And we have seen how strong and how good the European institutions have been in giving answer and giving hope, not just hope, but actually giving strong and effective answer to all the European citizens. And on the other side, we have seen how the worst side possible of some nations, from the north, to the south, the east and the west, it's not just against someone, it was general, because selfishness has been winning the match in the first side. So welfare system is the key solution, and it's about job, it's about the job market, it's about houses policies, it's about healthcare policies, it's about university system, which is a key point of the European Union, it's about research, it's about future. So is it possible to have a concrete discussion about developing a European welfare? I know we already done a good job with the social pillar, but we should go more far, and we should try to be more concrete in what we give back to people. So those are my two big questions, and sorry if it takes too long, but thank you. And the last things, I'm sorry, sometimes from the south of Europe, we really feel like we are treated as if we are we are not just kids. Like in your family, you have parents and you have kids, and basically parents talk to kids as, hey guys, you still need to grow up. Don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. Don't do that. Or, oh yeah, you can just keep talking. It's fine. I'm your mama. It's fine. Okay, so sorry for this sketchy way of saying stuff, but it's still 7 p.m. for everyone. So sometimes we feel like we are treated like this. So as young generation, we are doing a really hard job in our own countries, trying to ask to our politicians to be more, to have more competence and to be more reliable. But please, from the top position, don't treat us like this, because whenever you're treating them, I mean, my prime minister in that way, I feel like you're treating us all. And this is where we go back to what Klára was describing perfectly about Orban. This is where we are, we have the, yeah, to just
sorry,
make everything
but just finish your sentence and then
it's fine.
Okay, so, I'm really sorry, but I have to
thank you, because you know that I always over talk, so it's fine. I'm gonna just be there.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I have the part today to take care of the time, so that's why I had to talk to Martin also today. But I know it was important for you, and that's why we're doing this session right now, that you can ask questions and comment what we're discussing right now, and that's why I didn't interrupt you before. This was also a strong statement, and I guess it was important also from the other countries to listen to it. Klára, do you want to comment it and to ask the questions in a quick way?
I'll try. First of all, well, let me be positive. So I'm actually an optimistic person, which doesn't mean that I'm in a pink dreams, living in a pink dreams, but in a harsh reality, especially in Hungary. First of all, about selfishness. in December, January, in the European Parliament and the Commission and the Council, we almost killed each other in a political sense, whether the budget of the European Union should be 1.0.3 or 1.3 or 1.0 of the total wealth of the European Union. I mean, we almost killed each other. And we said it's end of the day if it's not 1.3, or the other part said, oh, come on, the European economy is going to collapse if it's more than 1.0. And what happened? Suddenly a crisis came. And now we doubled the budget of the European Union for 1 month. I mean, it's really unbelievable. And on the other hand, and let me, because I'm on your part, being an East European, being a receiver from European funds, but let me be a little bit more understandable towards the donor countries who have the task to explain to their own citizens and their own voters that all the taxpayer money from Germany, from Denmark, from Holland is going to a good place where it will bring additional wealth to the whole European community. So I do understand the logic behind their being a little bit more curious how we are imagining our common future. On the other hand, Martin, that's how you began at the beginning, that, I mean, this whole European project is of benefit of all of us. Germany is a big donor, but one of the biggest receivers from the wealth of the European Union as well. So as you said, if we help Italy, or if Germany helps Italy or Denmark or Holland, I mean, that's for their best interest. And then we are still not talking about values. I'm talking now about interests of political interest, because when we talk about values, then it's absolutely above all that the whole European project is based on solidarity. So I think, Laura, you are right that we have to be a little bit more careful, not patronizing Eastern Europeans or South Europeans, but on the other hand, let's be understandable to those politicians who have the task to go to their voters and explain why do I want a little bit more taxpayers' money from you. So that's definitely. And your second question about the local governments, when I'm talking about the United States of Europe, then I was always attacked, oh my God, I want everything to be decided in Brussels. Come on, it's still such a big bubble. But that's not true. The principle and the idea of ever closer union goes together with the principle and idea of subsidiarity, which is, I think, one of the strongest points in the European, let's say, interest or even values. So, for example, in the new MFF, I'm very much for all those kind of funds that are given to regions or local governments, like integrated territorial investments, for example, in the regional policy, where really people on the ground can decide what to spend the money for, because people on the ground know the best, whether in their town it's needed for social welfare, for education, for public transport, or for healthcare system. So I really increase the amount of funds which are going directly to local governments and in their or regional authorities in their capacity. And the second, what you are talking about, how can we bring closer Europe? And we were talking already about treaty change. We have to make Europe more democratic. I mean, until the parliament is absolutely transparent, and you can see how it works. And now we have the council, where you know how it looks like. There is a red line in front of the council meetings where only prime minister and presidents can enter, and maybe some interpreters if someone is not speaking languages. And no one knows what's happening inside, what kind of compromises they made, who said what were the arguments about the decision. And this is the co-decision power in Europe. So we have a transparent parliament and we have a black hole where decisions are coming out, but at the end of the day, we don't know how these decisions were made. And sometimes, especially with my Prime Minister Orban, the one is telling absolutely different issue than the other one, so you cannot. So in order to bring Europe closer to citizens, we have to make it more democratic.
Thank you, Klára. I know, Martin, you have to leave in about 2-3 minutes. I know that Charles has another important and quick question, but I want to give you the chance to answer to Laura, or we can also do it together if it's okay for you, Laura. Then we can just switch.
I think Klára, gave already a comprehensive answer. Laura, I was 11 years a mayor of a city about 40,000 inhabitants. Not as important as Florence, but my experience is as nearer decision-making and application of measures happen to the citizen, as higher is the acceptance. This is one of the problems of the European Union. The European Union is far away. Therefore, strengthening the local authorities by applying to healthcare, social protection, education, whatever influences the daily life of citizens from the early morning to the late night. Most of these things happen in the cities, in the communities, and therefore to strengthen them must, especially for us socialists, be a key goal of what we do. So I could not more agree with what you described about your role as a city councillor. The frame, the financial and the legal frame for it has to be created in Rome and in Brussels. And our duty as social democrats is to survey that the legal frame is so clear, well balanced and just that the local authorities can apply really protection of ordinary citizens. This is what Macron, I think what he expressed with his word, une Europe qui protège, a Europe which is protecting. Is not decided, is perhaps decided in Brussels, in Paris, and in Berlin, and in Rome, but is applied in Firenze or in my hometown. Therefore, the role of, as Klára just mentioned, subsidiarity, the role of subsidiarity and of the local authorities is crucial. Could I add one element to this North-South education and this behavior of Europeans to give lessons to other Europeans? I just finished, before I joined our conference here, a meeting in the Committee of European Affairs of the German Bundestag, together with Wolfgang Schäuble. One of the worst experiences of my political life in Europe is that countries are giving lessons to other countries. My idea of Europe was exactly to overcome that one country could be played against, the interest of one country could be played against the interest of another country. The lessons we learned from the first half of the 20th century was, together we are stronger, than to play our interest against each other. And therefore I'm so disappointed that this feeling, for example, in Italy, that the Germans are giving permanently lessons to the Italians, which is, by the way, not true, but that feeling is existing. And therefore I try to tell to Germans here, Italy is a G7 country. The technological, industrial, scientific and cultural development of Italy is crucial for the whole continent. And therefore we have to strengthen Italy.
Thank you, Martin. Sorry, Laura, you can't comment right now because we have not much time. But if you have something you want to add, just write it to us and we will send it to Klára and Martin. I guess this is a good solution. We have one final question for you. And then we have to finish today because, Martin, you have a next meeting. Today is the beginning of the German presidency, so you have many meetings today.
Busy day today.
There's one last question, and this question comes from Charlotte from London. And she told me that she's doing it really quick and short. Philip, is she in here?
Yes, Charlotte should be on board in a second.
My internet dropped, but it should be back now.
Great.
Oh, and you're here. Yeah. What about your video, Charlotte?
I can turn it on now. There we go.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. You have the
Hello.
chance today to ask a final question to Klára and Martin.
Yeah, I will be really quick in asking the question, although I'm aware the answer might not be able to be very quick. So I'm asking this question from my flat in London, which I've been in for quite some time now, but I don't know if you can hear from my accent. I'm originally from Ireland. So my question is, as we're talking about solidarity, how you envision the relationship between the Europe 27 and the UK going forward, and in particular, do you see European solidarity with Ireland as a member state causing issues in the future? I know it might be a topic for a whole discussion in itself, but if we can have some sort of brief response, and maybe we can pick it up another time.
Yeah. Martin, do you want to start?
I think the Irish can rely on the European Union, and nevertheless, the European Union could not give for the time being a guarantee that not one of the victims of the strategy of the London government, of the Downing Street strategies, is Ireland. The Irish market and the British market are so strongly linked to each other and depending from each, Ireland especially, from the British market, that a no deal between the European Union and the United Kingdom will not affect no other country negatively more than Ireland. This brings the Irish government in a very difficult situation. On one hand, they support, and I find this really remarkable, with which kind of discipline the government in Dublin until today is supporting this common line of the European Union in the negotiation with the government of the United Kingdom, even taking in account that a no deal, which is possible, could affect Ireland very strongly economically. And therefore, we have to make an appeal, let's be honest, to the British government. Stop to play with that no deal scenario, which is not a negotiation strategy to the European Union. It is especially a domestic strategy to give Johnson the image that he is the hard player defending the UK national interest and keeping this Brexiteers he won for the last election on board. But this is, as I said, once more a short-term thinking, playing the interests of a whole nation, the British nation and the Irish nation. And therefore, I hope really that the Europeans will move, that's for sure, and make some concessions if it is necessary. But no concessions coming from the United Kingdom government. I give you only one example: to have entire free access to the common market without guaranteeing individual citizens' rights in that market to European citizens and to British citizens in the European Union and to European citizens in the United Kingdom is impossible. Therefore, that will be a very difficult time, and Charlotte, the European Union must be very grateful to Ireland. If you allow, Vivian, even if I have to leave, not only because of the behavior of Ireland now. One thing which was completely forgotten during the last years is that Irish citizens, during the banking crisis, in the way that the Irish government took over the whole debt of the banks in Ireland, avoided the meltdown of the whole banking system in Europe. Irish taxpayers paid at the end also for Germans, Italians, and French. And therefore, I think the European member states have to be completely and entirely in solidarity, acting in solidarity with Ireland.
Thank you, Martin. I don't want to say much right now because of the time. Klára, and then, yeah.
Well, just very shortly, for me, it's especially frightening to see how irresponsible politicians just playing a game which they didn't even thought through in a proper way and starting to play with history. And at the end of the day, it comes out that history will play with them. And it's frightening for me as a Hungarian because I see my Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, to play the same games as the Brexiters played in Great Britain. Well, I tell you the truth, Charlotte, as I told you, I'm optimistic. I'm definitely sure that you are young enough, and I hope that I am young enough, that we will be in the same European Union. But to understand, and from social democrat point of view, that we have achievements in Europe, we would like to have a more social Europe, a more climate responsible Europe. We would like to have a Europe which represents and protects civil rights. Then we cannot make compromises with Great Britain on these issues, because then we are losing those achievements what we have fought for in the past few years. It's not simply about Great Britain, it's about Europe. So that's why what Martin said, that a responsible British government has to understand that to make a deal with the European Union, it means accepting those achievements what we have already in the past years. And to have a no-deal Brexit, that I think it's a disaster, not only for Great Britain, it would be a very, very, and Ireland, of course, it would be a very bad for Europe as well. But the bad deal would abolish almost everything what we have fought for in the past few years.
Thank you for this honest and strong discussion. Charlotte, I saw your face. You're, yeah, it's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for joining. Thanks, Laura, again for your question. I got many messages also from Spanish EuropeTalks activists. They wrote me, yeah, she's right. And thanks, Martin and Clara, for the answers. So I guess this was
Thank you.
Important part. Before I want to give to Agnes, I want to say thank you to Martin and Clara. I know, Martin, you have to go because your next meeting is starting. That's why. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you're coming back. Maybe next time we'll meet somewhere when Corona, maybe it's finished.
Okay,
and,
take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And all the participants, thank you that you asked so many questions. We had about more than 40 questions. And don't forget the feedback. And yeah, sorry, Agnes.
No, it's okay. So yeah, thank you for giving us so much feedback, because we're actually planning to doing this on a regular basis and doing more events where we debate with different speakers. So we will look what you decided on which topic to discuss next time, and we'll stay in touch with you. So yeah, here you can see the results. So you're interested in more events, that's really good. And yeah, we will take everything in account, also the commentaries that you wrote, and hope to see you soon again after the summer break. So thank you for being with us today, and see you soon. Bye.
Enjoy your summer. Bye.